I think it's still dramatically undervalued because that is one of the most important companies in the world. It is the most important company in the world, supplying a product in AI that nobody else can make. You can't build an AI company without NVIDIA today.
Despite the China restrictions?
Yes, that's right.
Given that it is one of the most significant corporations in the world, I believe it is still wildly undervalued. It is the most significant business in the world, providing an AI product that no one else can produce. Despite China's regulations, you can't establish an AI company today without NVIDIA. That's correct, indeed. You entered the semiconductor market with NVIDIA, Kevin. Additionally, NVIDIA said that it would acquire NF Fabrica for about $900 million in order to hire its CEO. Give us your play and explain why you are using NVIDIA at the moment. They outbid Meta for the CEO, I suppose. I'm not sure. The idea of paying for anything like that sounded a bit out of NVIDIA's comfort zone. However, when you consider what they did with Intel, I believe that's the week's major news item. Once more, we wrote the covered call on that small jump with the extremely short term in mind. The call will end on Friday of next week. Once more, continue to clip coupons here. However, I believe it's great news for Intel. It's hard to predict whether that stock will move significantly from here in the near future. But I believe it's great if you hook your boat to NVIDIA, and we've seen that it might be a pretty interesting story for both stocks if we can bring this in-house and if NVIDIA can assist them. However, the story has changed since we were discussing how AMD was going to steal NVIDIA's lunch only a few weeks ago. Oh, after they invested almost $5 billion in Intel, you wrote this covered call. That was also when we learned that the Chinese government did not want any Chinese enterprises to purchase the chip and that they were accused of breaking China's anti-monopoly law. So discuss the whole plan with me. Although this company appears to have a reputation for volatility, there is at least some headline risk involved. We haven't really focused on their relationship with China during the last 6 months, in my opinion, and I do believe that may be posturing to some extent. I can't say for sure, Although I'm not involved in politics, I believe there may be some posturing and jockeying related to TikTok. We wrote a call that was 182.5. This expires on Friday of next week. It is near the money. We completed half of the job. Once more, you had good news. You may have had a negative news occurrence involving China. I just believe that if you want to invest in NVIDIA in the long run, you should be able to write calls against it in order to earn a premium. We are currently examining a 6-month chart for NVIDIA. It has increased by almost 50%. I believe that we may be able to discuss this stock. You own it, Jason. Has it run its course? Just a week ago, Link mentioned that we were discussing AMD, perhaps eating its lunch. 2 weeks prior, that was not that long ago. Big run-up in this business. Though a significant run-up, the valuations are modest when compared to certain other companies in the area. Do you continue to ride this train, or is this perhaps a place to profit from NVIDIA? No, I believe it might. I believe you should if you have been an investor for a long time. Given the run we've witnessed, particularly in the last 6 months, it seems sense to remove something from the table. Regarding only the long-term tailwinds, however, I believe that this stock is firmly rooted in the advancement of AI and innovation. That is beyond question. I agree with Kev's assessment of their roughly $5 billion investment in Intel. That should improve the PC market, in my opinion. That's fantastic. However, the one item I am aware was not included in the agreement is that the foundry business was still intended to be focused on Taiwan Semi, or TSMC. We'll see what transpires. I am aware that yesterday was a busy day for Intel. However, in my opinion, NVIDIA remains at the forefront of innovation, AI deployment, and infrastructure. Thus, I still enjoy this name. And once more, I believe it would be wise to perhaps take a small step back if you have been an investor for a long time. Speaking of chips, the SMH ETF, a well-liked strategy for investing in the semiconductor market, just had its best day since mid-May and has been up 10 of 11 days. This is an intriguing move on the part of Intel and NVIDIA. Are you thinking if this is beneficial for Intel when you look at this? Does it benefit NVIDIA? What does that signify for AMD as a whole? In essence, it indicates that NVIDIA is entering AMD's market by utilizing Intel as a source for This entails utilizing NVLink NVIDIA's connection platform to connect a GPU and enable Intel to be used. As a result, GPUs and CPUs work together to provide accelerated processing units, fantastic AI laptop processors, and better gaming desktops. What does that mean for Intel's foundry business, though, is the actual question. That viewpoint was really the only thing we discussed yesterday. I don't believe anyone mentioned how beneficial this was for NVIDIA. The majority of individuals believed that the Trump administration already owned stock in Intel. Instant conjecture follows. Jensen Huang's meeting with the UK president. He said, "Hey Jensen, we're trying, for security reasons. We're trying to get Intel back on its feet. Please be kind if you can assist. However, you claim that both businesses stand to gain something from it. It's not enough money to really impact Intel, and it's not much money for NVIDIA either. Isn't that what people said yesterday?" It marks the start of the foundry industry's ability to generate volume. The main query is if Intel can construct a second foundry, install a chipset, and obtain the necessary volume to enable chip manufacturing in the United States. Since the majority of people are currently, in other words, you design the semiconductor and Samsung and TSMC go build it. And you'll need to generate some volume if you're a fierce competitor and you truly want the US to have a state policy, allowing them to manufacture their own chips. And perhaps this marks the start of something there. However, you are unquestionably correct, and it is a modest quantity. However, it's also significant because, as you may recall, Intel manufactures the chips used in the military and in modern warfare. And if we're using chips in our gear, military products, and airplanes, we won't acquire them from anybody else. Did the size of the move surprise you? And we attempted to connect it to the simple notion that, well, if you believed that Intel was facing a real, long-term existential danger, it sort of detracts from the company's operations. If they begin with a collaboration with NVIDIA and the US government, they will most likely already be in existence. Although I believe it lessens the likelihood that Intel would disappear, the company's basic problems still exist. The question is whether you will design chips or build chips, and if you do both, can a business make it? That's the ultimate question, and I believe the majority of chipset industry professionals would agree that it's a challenging task. Although they are two distinct motions, there are potential synergies if you can execute them. The problem is that Intel hasn't made enough investments in the newest chip generation over the past 10 years. However, in this instance, combining NVIDIA and Intel could be enough to spark that catalyst. How much do you think this investment is, Ray? Is it merely a form of appeasement, a rounding error of pocket lint for NVIDIA, and a means of successfully suggesting to the White House, not even to shareholders, we're in it, we're going to try to help? Well, it's a rounding error if you look at the numbers. Although it means more to Intel than to NVIDIA, it also signifies that the US chip ecosystem is being developed and supported. As you can see, the ecology is quite modest. Therefore, the task is to build more capabilities, more software, more suppliers, and more design here. It's clear that NVIDIA wants to get into the BI-86 market. They might succeed. They could have done it in collaboration with AMD. Rather, they are here in collaboration with Intel, providing them with a lifeline at the very least. The issue is, if Intel can come up with a more comprehensive plan and begin producing better packed processors, from 5 nanometers to 3 nanometers to 2 nanometers, we are moving. That game doesn't even include Intel.